It started with a ping, just a soft buzz in my pocket while I was brushing my teeth. I almost ignored it. It was late, I was tired, and honestly, I wasn't in the mood for one more distraction. But old habits die hard, and that particular notification sound had always grabbed my attention. It came from the security system at Copperleaf Grill, a place I used to work part-time when we were trying to save for the down payment on our house. Back then, every dollar mattered. I installed the camera system myself, ran the wiring, synced the feeds to an old laptop in the back office. Nothing fancy, just functional. Linda had told me earlier that day she was going out with her girlfriends from work. Just dinner and drinks, she said. Might run a little late, so don't wait up. I didn't think much of it. She'd been distant lately, yes, more smiles for her phone than for me, more nights out than in. But I chalked it up to stress. Work. Life. The usual. Still, when I saw that the motion sensor had triggered at the restaurant, something inside me stirred. Not alarm, not yet, but something quieter, more subtle. A kind of mental itch that wouldn't go away. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened the security app, and tapped into the live feed. There she was. Clear as day. Linda sat at one of the window booths, table 8. She wore the Berg asterisk NY dress I hadn't seen in months, the one she used to reserve for date nights or weddings. She looked good. Hairstyled, nails done. Her eyes sparkled under the soft ambient lights of the restaurant. She was smiling. But she wasn't smiling at any of her friends. Across from her sat a man. Not a waiter, not a coworker, a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe late 30s, with sharp cheekbones and a tailored gray shirt. He leaned forward with both arms on the table as if he were absorbing every word she said. And Linda? She reached across, casually touched his hand as she laughed at something. Not a nervous touch, not a fleeting brush, a long, confident gesture. An asterisk, mate. Comfortable. I froze. For a second, I felt like I was watching someone else's life. She leaned in even closer, tucking her hair behind her ear, that same little move she used to do when we first met, when she still cared about being noticed. She laughed again, then tilted her head like she used to do when she was flirting. Like she wanted to be seen. Like she wanted him to see her. I didn't know how long I watched. I don't remember breathing. I just sat there, the blue hue from the screen casting shadows across the walls while the woman I thought I knew gave all her warmth to someone else. Maybe I should have closed the app, confronted her later, waited to hear her side. But something in me snapped. I clicked record on the footage, clipped the segment to just under 5 minutes, saved it, and sent it directly to her number with no caption. No questions. No accusations. Just evidence. Then I powered off my phone, set it face down on the table, and stared at the wall. It took her about an hour to call. The number was unfamiliar, not her usual one, which told me everything I needed to know about the state she was in. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Her voice came through frantic, already defensive. Hey, I just saw the video you sent. It's not what it looks like. I didn't say anything. Seriously, it's nothing. His name is Matt. He's an old friend from college. I didn't even know he'd be there tonight, we just bumped into each other. I could hear background noise, a car engine, wind, maybe the shuffling of her purse. She was pacing. She always paced when she lied. You know, she continued, this is part of the problem. You don't trust me. You never do. It's like you're always waiting for me to mess up. I still didn't say anything. Okay, look. I admit it probably looks bad, but you're blowing this out of proportion. I was just trying to catch up with an old friend. That's it. That's all it was. You shouldn't have been spying on me anyway. That says more about you than it does about me. That's when I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her to explain further. I didn't even tell her I was done. I just tapped end call, powered the phone down again, and sat in silence, trying to slow the storm inside my chest. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. Packed a small bag, just clothes, laptop, toothbrush, charger. I didn't make noise. Didn't leave a note. Didn't text. I stood for a moment in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her sleep. She looked peaceful. It made me sick. On my way out, I placed my wedding band on the kitchen counter next to her favorite mug. I wanted her to find it. I wanted her to wonder when I'd made that decision, whether it was the footage, the call, or the silence in between. I wanted her to know I had finally seen things clearly. I drove without a destination. Just put the car in gear and went. Somewhere around noon, I pulled into a small roadside diner and ordered coffee I didn't touch. I stared out the window, the hum of chatter and clinking silverware fading into white noise while my thoughts drifted through every little lie she'd told me in the past 6 months. Girls' nights. Work meetings. Last-minute schedule changes. New makeup. The sudden obsession with her phone. Her laughter that never quite made it to her eyes anymore. I thought I was imagining things. I told myself I was paranoid. I wasn't. Later that evening, I checked into a small cabin lodge 3 hours north, a place we once talked about visiting for an anniversary but never did. It was quiet. Rustic. The kind of place with old quilts on the beds and wood-paneled walls that made everything smell faintly of cedar and dust. I unpacked, showered, sat on the edge of the bed with the lights off and listened to the sound of the wind moving through the trees. No TV, no distractions. Just the quiet knowledge that my life had split cleanly in two before that video and after. And somewhere in the stillness of that cabin, I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not tonight. Not ever, at least not the way she remembered me. Not as the man who overlooked her silences, forgave her cold shoulders, excused the red flags because he still wanted to believe in the version of her that smiled at him in old photos. That man? He was gone now. The next day, I'd start figuring out what came next. But for that night, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the weight of everything settle in. She forgot about the camera. But I didn't. And that's when everything changed. The thing about hindsight is that it doesn't whisper, it roars. Sitting alone in a cabin 2 states away, the silence pressed in on me like humidity before a thunderstorm. No city noise. No traffic. No sounds of Linda brushing her teeth in the bathroom or tossing laundry in the machine. Just the occasional groan of old wood and wind outside. At first, the quiet was a kind of relief. But soon it started speaking louder than I expected. And what it said was this: I should have seen it coming. Not just the dinner. Not just the footage at the restaurant. Long before that, the clues had been there. In plain sight. And I, like a fool, had waved them off as coincidence, stress, or growing pains. It started, I guess, around the holidays last year. Linda suddenly took an interest in skincare and beauty regimens she used to mock. She'd come home with tiny brown bags full of serums and eye creams, things I couldn't pronounce, let alone understand. She'd brush it off, say she was just trying something new. I figured maybe she just wanted to feel better in her skin. I didn't think that was a crime. I even complimented her. Encouraged it. You glow, I told her once. And she smiled, but not at me. Not really. Then came the jogging. Linda hated exercise. Always had. She called running a punishment disguised as self-care. So when she started doing early morning jogs, at first I teased her, asked if she'd been abducted by aliens and replaced. She laughed. A little too quickly. I noticed the shift but didn't press. She said it helped clear her head. Said she needed it for the stress. And then there was the phone. God, the phone. It used to sit on the charger during dinner. She'd toss it on the coffee table during movie nights, forget it in the bedroom without thinking twice. But slowly, gradually, it became an appendage. At first, it buzzed a little more. Then it was always face down. Then on silent. And eventually, it was glued to her hand like she expected the president to call at any moment. Even in the bathroom. Even when she slept. I remember asking her once, playfully, "You texting the Pope?" And she just smiled, tight-lipped, like it hurt to stretch too wide. She said, "It's work. That's all." But it was always work. Late meetings, quick calls, events I wasn't invited to because it was just a girl's thing. At first, I didn't question it. I told myself that marriage ebbs and flows. We'd been together for 8 years. Maybe we were in a dry spell. Maybe we were just older. Tired. And I was tired. I just finished a big project at the firm, and most nights I came home burned out and emotionally numb. I figured if I just gave her time, if I kept being stable, predictable, she'd return to center. She'd find her way back to us. But while I waited, she drifted. I remember one night in particular, I was on the porch grading papers from the community college course I taught part-time, and our daughter, Madison, came out in her pajamas. She sat beside me without saying a word for a while, just swinging her legs like she used to when she was 5. Then she looked up and said, "Mom's been weird lately." I asked her what she meant, and she shrugged. She's always on her phone. She forgot my band recital. She keeps saying she's tired, but then goes out. I don't know. She just doesn't look at you the same anymore. I smiled and tousled her hair. Said, "She's probably just overwhelmed. We all are. But the truth is, I felt it too. I just didn't want to name it. Naming things gives them power, makes them real. And I wasn't ready to face that something might be seriously broken. The moment that really sticks with me, the one that won't leave my mind, no matter how many nights I spend in this cabin, was the day I brought home a photo of our son's science fair award. Evan had won 2nd place, and he was glowing. I remember holding up the picture like it was a trophy. "Look at this," I said. He beat out that kid whose dad's an engineer. Linda barely looked up from her phone. That's nice, she said flatly. Can you put the casserole in the oven? That was it. No smile. No follow-up question. No pride. Just vacant. She was emotionally gone long before the camera ever caught her hand on another man's. I think the hardest part isn't the betrayal, not really. It's realizing how many times I had the chance to act and didn't. All the red flags that waved right in front of my face. I ignored them because I loved her, because I believed in her, because I wanted to. Love is blind, yes. But more than that, love is patient to a fault. Love makes excuses when it shouldn't. Love lets things slide because it's too scared of what the truth might mean. I think about that night with Madison a lot. The way she said, "She doesn't look at you the same." She was right. The affection was gone, replaced with tolerance. Polite boredom. That thing people do when they're mentally packing their bags, even if they're still physically in the room. The difference was, she had already left the marriage. I just hadn't caught up yet. Being in this cabin, alone, anonymous, I've had time to reflect. I started making a mental list of every lie I swallowed whole, every gut instinct I buried. I replay the dinners where she checked her phone every 5 minutes, the showers where she took her phone with her, the sudden refusal to let me touch her phone at all. She used to hand it to me to look at photos or order food. Then one day it became off-limits. Subtly, but definitively, and I pretended not to notice. There's this specific guilt that hits you when you realize your kids noticed it before you did. Madison saw the disconnect. Evan started asking why Mom never watched his baseball games anymore. I covered for her. Said she was busy. Said she was tired. But really, she was somewhere else. Probably with him. And still, I didn't want to believe she was capable of that. I thought if I held on long enough, things would snap back into place. That she'd just been drifting temporarily and would wake up one day and remember how good we used to be. But the thing is, people don't drift away by accident. They pack their emotional bags piece by piece. A look, a laugh, a text that never gets shared. A decision to show someone else a version of themselves you thought was yours. And when I think back on all those quiet evenings where I sat on the couch while she laughed at her phone, I wonder now if she was already gone. Emotionally, spiritually, already on the other side of a door I hadn't even noticed was closing. I think that's the part that hurts the most. Not the betrayal, not even the lies, but the realization that I was living with a stranger for longer than I realized. And I didn't want to see it. Now, in the cold glow of hindsight, I see everything clearly. I should have trusted my gut. I should have listened to my daughter. I should have asked harder questions when her answers didn't feel right. But I didn't, because I was afraid of what I might find. And now I know. Coming back into town wasn't supposed to feel like a stakeout, but that's what it became. I parked 2 blocks away from the house we used to share and waited. The windows were dark except for the kitchen, which glowed like a stage light behind the blinds. A piece of me still hoped I'd catch her alone, that maybe all of this was just some misunderstanding. Maybe the guy in the video was a fluke, a single lapse in judgment. I was lying to myself, of course, but I needed to see it, not just believe it, before I could let go completely. I had a clear line of sight to the front door. I stayed low in the seat, the engine off. No radio, just silence and the occasional rustle of wind moving through the trees that lined the street. Then it happened. Car pulled up. Not hers. Silver SUV. Tinted windows. Out stepped the man from the restaurant. Same gray shirt, rolled at the sleeves. Like a uniform. Like this was routine. He walked up the path casually. No pause at the door. No hesitation. Just a smooth, confident motion like he'd done it a dozen times before. Like he belonged there. And the door? It opened before he knocked. She was waiting for him. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just sat there and let the reality pour over me like cold water. There was no shock this time. No disbelief. Just that tight feeling in my chest. The one that hits you when hope finally dies. 20 minutes passed. Lights turned on upstairs. Our bedroom. The same room where we used to plan vacations, argue over paint colors, fold laundry while watching movies on the laptop. I could see the soft flicker of the TV through the window, backlit against the curtains. No shadows crossed it. No signs of life beyond the walls. But I knew he was still there. The camera at the front door confirmed it. I'd left the smart home account active, more out of habit than purpose, but now it served a different function. I checked the log from my phone. No exit recorded. He hadn't left. I stayed there until 1 a.m. When I drove away, the bedroom light was still on. The next morning, I checked the footage again. He left just after 6:30. No kiss goodbye, no wave, no lingering look. Just walked out the door and down the steps like it was nothing. Like my home was his hotel. At 8 o'clock, Linda left for work, wearing the same clothes she'd had on the night before. That was the moment. The point where all the threads snapped. The moment that took this from a question to a fact. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't emotional confusion or a bad choice after one too many drinks. This was deliberate, rehearsed, worn in. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel shocked anymore. What I felt, standing in the parking lot of a gas station 10 miles outside of town, watching the footage on my phone with cold coffee in my hand, was a kind of numb clarity. This woman, the one I had built a life around, sacrificed time, hobbies, and parts of myself to support, was in love with someone else. Not just attracted, not just bored. She had moved on, emotionally, physically, practically, while still holding on to my name and our shared mortgage. And she thought I'd never notice. I started to look back, trace the timeline in my head. The first night she stayed late at work. The sudden weekends at the spa with friends I never met. The out-of-town conferences that conveniently required no paperwork, no itinerary, no receipts. All the breadcrumbs were there. Even the bedroom had changed. I remembered coming home once from a trip and noticing that the sheets had been swapped out. New colors, different thread count. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Just assumed Linda had gotten restless with the old set. Now I wondered whose idea the new ones were. Over the next few days, I started tracking patterns. I didn't reach out. I didn't confront. I just watched. I became a ghost haunting my own life, orbiting around it without touching anything. She had no idea I was back in town. No idea I was watching. And what I saw confirmed everything. He came by again on a Thursday, left Friday morning, returned Saturday, left before dawn Sunday. Pattern, a rhythm, a second life happening right inside mine, like a hidden track playing under a familiar song. And I never heard it. It was surreal, like watching a stranger act out your memories. The kitchen, the couch, the driveway, all being reused like rented props. Even our dog, Marley, wagged his tail when the man showed up, like it was normal. Like I had been replaced so seamlessly that even the pet adjusted. I started wondering how long it had been going on. A month? 3? A year? I remembered one night, maybe 6 months ago, when Linda had been unusually affectionate. She brought home takeout from my favorite Thai place, lit candles in the kitchen, even poured wine without me asking. I thought it was a turning point. I thought maybe we were coming back together. Now I wondered if that was guilt. A peace offering for something I didn't know she'd already done. I couldn't eat Thai food anymore after that. Couldn't smell lemongrass without feeling sick. At some point, the question of why stopped mattering. I had stopped obsessing over what I did or didn't do to cause it. The answer was simple. She'd made a choice. 1,000 little ones, one after the other. Some she justified, some she probably regrets. But she made them, and I didn't. That difference, that line in the sand, was all I needed. One night, around 2 a.m., I found myself parked 2 streets over from the house. I didn't get out. I didn't need to. I just sat there, windows fogging up from my breath, watching the faint glow from her bedroom window. And I thought, this is how people vanish. Not in some dramatic, explosive exit. Not with bags thrown on the lawn or screaming matches on the porch. They vanish in moments like this, quiet, slow, and certain. Like mist peeling off a lake in the morning. When I finally drove away, I didn't look back. That night, I booked a new apartment. Cash deposit. No forwarding address. I didn't know exactly what the next step was yet, but I knew it wouldn't be at that house. Not in that bed. Not with those walls. I wouldn't reclaim what had been hollowed out. I didn't want it anymore. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning some grand confrontation. That kind of drama might satisfy the wounded ego, but it doesn't heal the wound. What I wanted now was something else. Clarity, closure, and eventually freedom. But first, I had to disappear. Not physically, not yet, but from her version of the story. I had to rewrite the part where I stood still and accepted it. Because I wasn't that man anymore. He died in a parked car across the street from his own house, watching another man turn off the bedroom light. I didn't vanish overnight. It was slow, measured, like pulling your hand away from a fire without letting anyone see you were ever burned. After that last night parked near the house, our house, though I had stopped calling it that in my mind, I made my first real move. Not emotional, not impulsive, strategic. I found a small, third-floor apartment on the other side of the city in a neighborhood Linda hated because it was too far from everything. That made it perfect. No chance of her passing through. No shared grocery store or gas station run-ins. It was anonymous, quiet, and best of all, mine. The landlord didn't ask too many questions. I paid the deposit in cash, gave a work reference, and said I was coming off a breakup. He gave me a sympathetic look, handed me the keys, and said, "Hope this place gives you peace." I didn't know how to answer that, so I just nodded and said thanks. The apartment was small. Not depressing small, but minimal. Clean. Functional. It had a single window with a view of the alley and an old radiator that clanked like it had a grudge. There was no furniture yet, just the faint scent of lemon cleaner and dry paint. I stood in the middle of the room, listening to the emptiness, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I had been spiraling for weeks, reacting, hurting, watching. Now, for the first time, I was acting. Step 1. Remove her access. I changed all my passwords. Email, banking, socials. I pulled my name off our joint streaming services. Unlinked our Amazon account. Changed the password to the home Wi-Fi and then deleted it from my devices. It was petty maybe, but symbolic. Every digital thread was one less not keeping us entangled. Step 2. Follow the money. I made an appointment with a financial consultant. Quiet guy. No clipboard, no judgment. I laid it all out for him, the joint accounts, the investments, the mortgage. And then I asked him the question that had been chewing at me since this started. Can you see if she's been moving money around? He opened his laptop and started scrolling. It took all of 5 minutes. There he said, turning the screen toward me. Small withdrawals. Frequent. Structured to avoid triggering alerts. Classic siphoning. She had been taking $50 to $100 at a time from our joint account, transferring it into a separate account with her name only. It started 6 months ago, almost exactly when the shift in her behavior began. By the end, she had moved over $8,000. Smart, the consultant said, almost admiring. But not subtle enough. I asked if we could legally trace the transfers. He said yes, especially in a divorce proceeding. That was the first time I let that word sit fully in my mind, divorce. Not as a threat, not as an escape hatch, but as a real path forward. Step 3. Gather evidence. Back home, if I could still call it that, we had a shared family tablet we barely used. Mostly for recipes and music playlists. But it was synced to Linda's cloud account, which meant I had access to the last 6 months of her photo uploads, backups, and yes, messages. I didn't go looking for pain. But I found it anyway. There were messages with him. Dozens. They weren't vague or flirty or easy to dismiss. These weren't texts between two people testing the waters. These were full-blown declarations. Plans. Inside jokes. Photos I couldn't unsee, not graphic, just an asterisk mate. *TS of him drinking coffee on our back porch. Selfies she took in our kitchen, in our bed. Her smiling in ways I hadn't seen in years. The worst wasn't the pictures. It was the words. You make me feel seen. When I'm with you, it's like I can breathe again. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. Pretending. That word echoed. She had been pretending with me. Playing house, showing up just enough to keep the illusion going. Meanwhile, she was living another life just beneath the surface, one full of possibility, electricity, and apparently freedom. I clicked through until I hit a thread labeled travel. My stomach sank. July, Colorado? I found a cabin. Private. Just us. I want you to see me without filters. Just me. That one hit harder than I expected. Because I remembered her saying the exact same thing to me during our first trip together years ago, back when love still felt new and unshaped. I guess those lines just get recycled once the audience changes. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage or call or send her screenshot *TS. I archived everything. Made a digital folder labeled truth and kept multiple backups, local, cloud, encrypted. Not for revenge. For clarity. For court if it came to that. But mostly to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't in my head. Because for months she'd been gaslighting me gently, fully like a pianist hitting all the soft notes. You're imagining things. Why are you so paranoid? Can't I have a life outside of us? But it hadn't been a life outside of us. It had been a life without us. And now I had proof. Still, I stayed silent. Not because I was scared, not anymore, but because silence had become my N. The less I said, the more she speculated. I could see it in the messages she sent to our shared friends. Concerned check-ins. Carefully phrased updates. He's been acting strange. I think he's going through something. Just pray for him, okay? I watched as she laid the foundation for her version of the story, one where I was the unstable one. The distant husband. The emotionally unavailable man who shut down and pushed her away. I didn't respond. I let her build it. Because every lie she told now would serve as contrast later. I sent one message, just one, to our closest circle. No emotion. No drama. Just, I'm taking time to focus on myself. I'm safe, I'm working, and I appreciate your understanding. Please respect my space during this transition. That was it. I archived the message. Timestamped it. Sent a copy to my lawyer who had finally contacted that week. His advice was simple: don't let her know what you know. Yet. So I didn't. Instead, I became invisible. Moved through the world like a shadow. I worked from coffee shops, slept in my new place, and used a burner phone for anything Linda might trace. I let her think I was in free fall while I was actually rebuilding brick by brick, quietly, precisely. My final step was financial separation. I opened a new account, transferred my direct deposit, froze our joint credit cards, and requested replacements for my own use. She noticed, of course. She sent a text. Hey, the card isn't working. Did you forget to pay the bill? I didn't answer. Let her sit with the silence. Let her wonder when I stopped playing the part. The truth was, I hadn't been her husband for weeks. Maybe months. Not since the night I watched another man walk into my home like it belonged to him. Now I was just the ghost who used to live there and the man who was about to reclaim his life. When people feel power slipping from their hands, they do one of two things. They either accept the fall, or they scramble for a new way to hold on. Linda scrambled. I'd been quiet for weeks. No confrontation. No big scene. Just absence. A withdrawal of presence. And at first, I think she took that as a win. The kind of win that narcissists mistake for control, the I got away with it win. But when she realized I wasn't just giving her space, I was removing myself entirely, her tone shifted. It started small. A few texts. Hey, just checking in. You okay? Then a call from a mutual friend. Linda said she's worried about you. Said you've been off. Said maybe you're having a hard time processing things? That was the moment I knew she was rewriting the script. She wasn't owning what happened, she was reframing it. She wanted to get ahead of the story. And in her version, I wasn't the man calmly pulling away from a collapsing marriage. I was unstable. Volatile. Mysterious enough that people would begin to wonder if maybe I'd driven her away. It was subtle. Calculated. And the most dangerous kind of manipulation, the kind wrapped in faux concern. She began reaching out to my sister. To my cousins. People she hadn't spoken to in months. Each message was laced with worry, not about me, but about how I was coping. It was brilliant, really. Incredibly cruel. But brilliant. I think he might be having a breakdown. He won't talk to me and I'm really scared for him. If you hear from him, can you just make sure he's okay? Not one mention of what she'd done. Not one admission of guilt. Just concern. And they bought it. At least, some of them did. My aunt called one night and said, I don't want to intrude, sweetheart, but Linda told me you haven't been sleeping, and I got worried. I smiled at the irony. I hadn't slept this well in months. That same week, Linda's sister, someone who once told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her sibling, left me a voicemail that made my blood run cold. I just want you to know, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. And if you need help, real help, we can figure something out. You don't have to isolate. Real help. It was coded language. A suggestion. A seed of doubt meant to bloom into something ugly. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what Linda wasn't counting on. I documented everything. Every message. Every voicemail. Every secondhand quote from mutuals. I logged them, dated them, and handed them to my lawyer. He told me something I hadn't considered. This isn't just emotional manipulation, he said. If it escalates, it becomes legal leverage. She's crafting a mental health narrative, and if it lands, it could be used to question your stability, especially in custody or financial discussions. Custody. The word stopped me cold. We hadn't gotten that far, not out loud. The kids were still technically with her. I hadn't demanded anything yet because I was waiting. Planning. But that was the moment it became real. She wasn't just rewriting the past. She was trying to write the future without me in it. That night, I sent a message to our closest circle. Just one. I've received some messages recently suggesting I'm not doing well. I want to clarify, I am safe, I am working, and I'm taking personal time to reflect and recover. Any rumors or concerns about my mental health are unfounded and appear to be based on miscommunication or misinterpretation. I appreciate your respect during this process. No emotion. No blame. Just calm, factual precision. I sent it. I ***ed it. I had it timestamped and notarized 2 days later. My lawyer called it a preemptive strike. I called it sanity insurance. After that, I went quiet again. I watched as Linda's narrative struggled to hold shape. Some friends stopped replying to her. Others sent me quiet DMs, nothing dramatic, just, "Hey, saw your message. I'm here if you need anything." The shift had started. Slowly, gently, like ice cracking underfoot. But Linda didn't stop. She just changed tactics. She tried guilt. "I'm trying to keep the civil. I don't know what you're doing, but it feels like you're trying to hurt me on purpose." She tried confusion. "Can we talk? Just one real conversation. I deserve that, don't I?" She even tried nostalgia. "I miss you. I miss us. I don't know how we got here." Each one was met with silence. And that silence? It became her mirror. A place where all her words bounced back unanswered, and for the first time she had to sit with them. But the thing about control is, when people lose it, they panic. She started baiting me. Petty jabs. Social media posts with passive-aggressive captions. A photo of the backyard I designed, now captioned, "Some things still feel like home." A blurry **T of Marley, our dog, with the tag, "The one man I can trust." That one almost got to me. But then I remembered the footage, her laughing in our kitchen with the man in the gray shirt. Her lips pressed to his neck where I used to kiss her goodnight. The messages she wrote to him. The plans she made. She had forfeited her right to sentimentality. So I stayed the course. No posts. No rants. No retaliation. Just deliberate, surgical detachment. Meanwhile, I focused on my life. I picked up freelance work. I started running, not from pain, but towards something new. I called my parents. I reconnected with an old college friend who had reached out cautiously after hearing the story. We met for lunch. I told him just enough. He didn't say much, but as we left, he looked at me and said, "You seem lighter." She must hate that. I laughed for the first time in a while. Then, in the middle of all this, the silence, the strategy, the slow rebuild, something unexpected happened. A mutual friend reached out. Not with questions. Not with pity. With support. She sent me a message that just said, "I saw the footage. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't deserve that." No drama. No elaboration. Just validation. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I responded. "Thanks. That means more than you know." Because it did. For so long, I've been living in a private war zone. A place where nothing was certain except the ache in my chest and the knowledge that the person I loved had become a stranger with my secrets in her mouth. Now at least someone else saw it too. I didn't send her the footage, I didn't have to. That meant someone else had. Someone who'd seen enough to step out of Linda's circle and into mine. And that told me everything I needed to know. The silence was working. Linda had spent months crafting her version of control, the subtle manipulation, the quiet campaign, the careful phrasing designed to keep me reactive, uncertain, small. But I had stepped out of her script. And without me playing the part of the broken husband, the narrative fell apart. Now, the truth was spreading, not loudly, not viciously, but clearly. And the cracks in her story? They were showing. A week later, a courier knocked on her door. Inside the envelope, **TS of her messages, proof of the secret account, the restaurant footage, the one she forgot had cameras. No note, no threat, just a quiet, irreversible truth. Through the home security system, I watched her face go pale. She paced the kitchen, phone shaking in her hand. That night, he showed up. They argued, loud, messy. Then he left, fast, and never returned. Hours later, I got a message from an old friend. "I saw it. You didn't deserve any of this. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I didn't need to." Silence was saying everything now. 3 weeks passed. Then I returned. Not to beg, not to argue. Just to collect what was mine. She froze at the window when I walked in. I packed quietly. Documents, backups, a few keepsakes. On the counter, I placed divorce papers I'd prepared weeks earlier. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. 2 days later, the kids came home, not to her, but to me. I didn't explain everything. They felt the shift. They understood enough. A year later, I live by the lake in a house filled with peace. On my birthday, my daughter sent a photo with 5 words. "You look happy again, Dad." And I finally was.